The fastest, in round one, the fastest delivery was still slower than the slowest delivery in the second.
So round one, fastest delivery was slower than the slowest delivery in round two. So same number of resources, dramatic difference.
I felt much more confident getting my name spelled correctly the second time.
Technical difficulties. It's complicated. Keeping all that in mind, yeah?
The first customer got served very early. There was very less context switching.
Less context switching, less confusion.
First delivery was very early. The first customer got served very early.
So generally speaking, earlier deliveries.
Developer more motivated.
As a developer, more motivated in which round? Because
Well, I can finish all day and get something done.
you finish it, I get a pat in the back, right? It's great. You make their money too. Delivering something useful for a customer.
No, I like the customer.
Yeah. More personal attention. The communication pattern was different, right?
Right.
So in the first round, it was like a lot of short communication with all the customers, a lot of jumping back and forth. In the second round, I demanded this customer's full attention for, say, 5 seconds. And it was done. Instead of going back and asking you over a period of 1 minute, lots of questions. I'm going to stop there. There are more differences. But what's interesting is if we graph this, which I would have done if I had a bit longer time, but I'll just do the favor to do it for you because it always looks the same anyway. Here's 5 different examples, and I've made one bigger. We have round 1, these are 5 different customers, and it shows when did my project start, when did it end, how long was it? 5 lines. And here, second round, same 5 customers, when did my project start, when did it end? And what's interesting, which you already identified, was things like, well, of course the lines are longer, they're dramatically longer, they're 10 to 15 times longer, right? We got 10 to 15 times faster without hiring more developers. Even such a simple, silly project like writing names. Another interesting thing, though, which is a bit more subtle, is that these projects started earlier, right? In fact, in your case, you started all at once. So these were all at 0 for you, probably, or close to 0. So the project started earlier here, but finished later. So we're not going to spend time doing this, but what's interesting is if you do this in a class or with a client or in some context, it's really interesting to have a discussion about in which case is this motivating. And there are cases, but there are quite a few. So I'll move on and just summarize this. Why do we do this? Or do we do this? Are any of you kind of experienced with this kind of problem? Maybe you experienced it in the past. Fairly common. Now it's being, of course, exaggerated to quite extreme in this case, but it happens, and the effects are quite dramatic, both in real life and in this exercise. So why do we do it? Well, focusing on starting stuff rather than finishing stuff. In other words, the belief that starting early means finishing early. Right? That's a misconception. In the second example, we started every single name later, except the first one, and finishing earlier. So don't focus on starting stuff, focus on finishing stuff. And the way to do that is by living work in progress. If you don't live work in progress, you get all these things going at the same time. Now, focus on keeping people busy will make this happen too. Because, well, developers, do you feel very busy? Very busy, all these projects. Now here, in this case, look right there, a bit of slack. Right? About 2 or 3 seconds of slack. Oh no, I have nothing to do. Waste of hours, right? I'm paying 10 hours and it's not doing anything. But that's okay, because that's not what matters. This is what matters, right? Getting stuff done. So if we're very scared of people sometimes having a bit of slack, then that tends to cause kind of overscheduling. And if any of you were in Mary's talk, I'm sure you talked about things like the traffic. Maybe not. Never mind that. If you're in a traffic system, right, and there's a car on every inch of the road, things are slow going, right? Called a traffic jam. Nobody's getting anywhere. If there's a bit of space on the road, things flow fast. Similar. So this is kind of the motivation, an example, a clear example of why it's so important to live work in progress, even though it may sometimes look like it's causing things to be less effective. Like, hey, I have nothing to do right now. So we'll clarify that point. Now here's a really important thing also. There's always a reason for doing this. There's always a reason. Well, because our customer is not available for 1 whole week. It's only available 1 hour every 3rd week. So therefore we have to tackle on many different customers at the same time. And we have to wait for Jim because he's on 3 other projects. And that's the reason. So therefore, we're stuck here. So, here's somebody bathing water. Why is she bathing water? Well, there's a reason, right? Because there's water in the boat. That's why I'm bathing water, right? Perfectly good reason. So keep failing. Maybe hire some more people to bail water. Maybe install a really good certified process for water delivery. But of course, that's not what we should be doing. Even though there's a perfectly good reason for bailing water, we should ignore that reason and dig deeper. And the reason for the reason is the hole in the boat, right? Fix the hole, you don't have to bail so much water. So dig deeper, don't just accept the reason. Especially in a simple thing like this, where it's pretty much almost always a lose-lose scenario. You can always question the reason. Okay, so that was a little bit about why it's important to limit work in progress. And I bring that up because a lot of teams that want to do Kanban, they only do half of it. They start visualizing the work in process, and they make these nice boards, but they don't do the limits. So, let's look at a real life example. And keeping it fairly quick, here's a value stream. And for those of you who don't know what it is, I think you'll kind of get it quite quickly. This is a gaming company that was developing games, web-based games. And it turned out that when they develop a new game, this is what happens. First, there is some kind of process of proving a concept, right? Someone has an idea, we want to build a game, we need to get it approved. And just to explain what these numbers mean, read these ways, is time passing without this game being developed. So in this case, it says 1 month there because the concept presentation meeting is every second month. So the average wait time until the next meeting is 1 month. So it's like kind of like tracking a package here. One idea tracked all the way until production. So it goes through somebody having an idea and then a concept presentation meeting, then it ends up on a list of all the games that we've decided to build, just 8 stuff on the list. And then we have Lisa who's going to assign resources, or somebody in the project management side is going to set up the project. And this takes 6 months here. And why? Well, because this game ended up on the list. And by the time Lisa got around to picking up this particular game, it's been sitting there for 6 months because there were 7 other games in front. So that this is a lead time, cycle time. All right. Graphic design, sound design, fairly linear process, and okay, it's design ready. You can look at the game, you can listen to it, we can't play it. 15 other games sitting there. Now we have a development team, and they can build a new game in 3 months, but it's been sitting in that list for 6 months before they even start. And out of these 3 months, it turns out that these developers are multitasking. They're building lots of games at the same time. So I asked them, if you only built one game, how long would it take? On average, if you only focused on one game at a time. They said, well, maybe 1 month. So we did something in 3 months that we could have done in 1 month. Therefore, from a value stream perspective, we had 2 months of waste, 1 month of value at a time, etc. So the game is now developed and ready for production, but the production team has no slack, and there's a big queue here. So by the time they get around it, maybe 6 months. And 3 weeks later, it's in production, integrated, tested, and we're earning money. So does this feel kind of familiar? Does anyone have a similar kind of lots of waiting and queues and handovers and a lot of nodding? It's fairly common. Now adding all this up, we get a 25-month cycle time. So it takes about 2 years to get a new game out the door from idea, concept to production. And this matched their experience. 2 years plus minus 6 months. Roughly. Add up the green ones, 3 months value added time. So we did 3 months work in 25 months. That might look pretty bad. 12%. But if you ask anybody who does value streams on a regular basis, you'll find that, well, for some reason, if you map out a process, even in different domains, unless they optimize this, it tends to land somewhere between 10 and 50% for some reason. I have no idea why. Just very common. So this might look very bad, but it's in fact quite common. And it's in a way good news because there's immense improvement potential for fairly low cost. And we definitely don't need to hire more people to get faster. So, what is the root cause of this problem? Things taking so long. Queues, right? That's what they concluded. Queues make it take a long time. So we have to have less queues. So a few months later, when I came back and we did a similar workshop again to check, okay, what's happened now? Because they said they changed things. So we mapped it all together. It was quite similar, right? All the way down to about here. It's pretty much the same numbers, plus minus say 50%, right? But this queue was gone. So this queue is gone now. Really? Wow, it's gone. Yeah. Fantastic. So it's 0. Yeah. Okay, but what about developers? Ask them. So how long does it take you to build a new game now? They said, we're never going to finish a game again. Why? So all this queue became work in progress and therefore invisible. So we made the problem worse. So this is an example of trying to solve a symptom. A queue is not a problem, a queue is a symptom. So we got to solve the thing causing the queue. And what is that? Too much work in progress. And then what causes that? All at once. Not limiting work in progress. Not setting limits. There's no connection between that output there and this input over here. It gets crowded. Here's a candy store, right? At rush hour, we got 2 people coming out per hour. So we didn't even know how many people work in there. But we noticed that 2 people per hour seems to be the maximum capacity. So 3 people per hour are coming in over a long period of time. And it gets crowded. Same thing. It gets crowded, and sooner or later people start leaving and now they're angry. So they came there with the intent of paying money to buy candy from you, and now they're leaving several hours later, angry and still holding their money. So it would have been better never to let them in. And this is the hard part. And this is what the work in progress limits do. They force you to prioritize. So I'm sorry, customer number 3, but for your, in everybody's interest, we are focused. So we do 1 customer at a time, or 2, or whatever your limit is. So we're not going to start your project until a bit later, but in return, we're 15 times faster than that company over there. In Scrum, it's the same thing. You're in a sprint planning meeting, and your velocity is to, let's say, some range, 15 to 20, and the product owner or somebody wants to put in 30, then as Scrum Master, you've got to kind of not accept that. Well, our capacity is 15 to 20. Why should we bring in more than we can handle? That's a lose-lose scenario. So, in this particular case, what we did was implement Scrum. So we created a cross-functional team going all the way across, and they demonstrated that they could build a new game in 3 to 4 months. And after they did that, they created another team which could also do that. So now they have 2 teams building games in 3 or 4 months, which meant that they could build roughly the same number of games as before, but about 6 to 8 times faster without hiring new people, which is great. But of course, it's not easy. It's organizational change. And this is where Kanban comes in. If I had known about Kanban at this time, I probably would have opted to do that instead. Because this was a violent change. It took them half a year before they even agreed to try it. So what would the Kanban approach have been to achieve the same kind of effect? A limit, right? We take this and we visualize it first of all, which is trivially easy actually. Just ask people what you're working on, you look for every queue in the system. Make it really visible on the wall or if you have to in some kind of tool. And limit, right? So maybe how many production-ready games do we need for these guys to do? Maybe just 1, maybe 2. How many games can this team work on effectively at a time? Maybe 2, maybe 1. Right? You put limits all the way across. And then what happened is you're reducing work in progress from, say, about 30 to maybe, let's say, 10. You get faster. In this case, they reduce work in progress from about 30 to about 2. Now they're at 3, I think. So what I'm trying to say there is that in this case, Scrum and Kanban are kind of different approaches to solving a similar problem. In this case, reducing the amount of work in progress. Kanban would have been a bit more evolutionary, a bit slower, less violent. Right? Scrum was a bit more kind of chalk therapy, big bang. Which one is right? Well, that's contextual. Right? How urgent is your problem? So that was the case study. I'm going to give an example of Kanban in action, using a little cartoon which I call One Day in Kanban Land. And, oh wait, I lied, rewind. This is a very interesting case that I've seen over and over again, so that's why we have a slide up. Scrum team here, they have 3 nice cross-functional feature teams. Right? They've been doing Scrum for a while, they have this set up. And they discover after a while that, wait a sec, there's something happening after the sprint. Operation, gotta get stuff out the door, right? Some Scrum teams put those guys in. In this case, they haven't yet, right? So they're outside. And these guys get inspired by what's going on here, so they start doing Scrum as well. They start scrumming operations and maybe maintenance, things like that. But then after a while, they start feeling that this wasn't quite right. Kind of like the dialogue we heard earlier in the presentation. It just didn't feel quite right. Maybe it was better than what they had before, but the sprints don't feel right. Why should we try to predict how much work we're going to be doing over a period of 1, 2, or 3, or whatever sprint length we have? Weeks. Because it's going to change anyway. Maybe this team is mostly reactive. So that causes overhead frustration. So they decide to go Kanban. Now since Scrum and Kanban both share the Agile lean principles, this works quite well. Having Scrum over here, Kanban over here, maybe a mix over there, delivering to each other or collaborating. Find your topology. This seems to be a pattern. Out of curiosity, is there anybody who recently has done this or is kind of in the way of doing it, about to do this right now? A few at least. Not as many as I would have thought. Okay. So let's take a look at one day at Kanban land. This is a cartoon that's on my blog.